And I feel like I have all these theories in my head, but then I also realize, like, am I just being paranoid and crazy? Because there was a weird timeline to it all.
Gabbie Hanna has gone after a lot of people in her career and hurt a lot of people too. And even though she has made an apology video where she says she's sorry to vague groups of people for things she may have done, there were people who were absent from that apology who maybe deserved one. One of the people we mentioned before that probably deserved an apology from Gabby is Jessie Smiles, and another is Rachel Oates, who reviewed Gabbie Hanna's poetry a few years ago, about 5 years ago now. She was critical of her poetry, but she went at it from the standpoint of a reviewer, a very technical review of the work itself. It was never a dig at Gabby, it was never in any way mocking Gabby as a person, it was simply critiquing a book that was out for the public to critique. And Gabby didn't like this, but she still sent Rachel her second poetry book to review, which Rachel did, and again critiqued it and didn't attack Gabby. But Gabby decided to go on the attack with Rachel.
When she talks about me, she gets hundreds of thousands to millions of views, and then she posts a little makeup get ready with me and gets 4,000. That's why she cares about my art. She's not a artist. I don't care about her because she has no accomplishments in art or has proven to me that she's actually intellectual enough to understand art. I accept my criticism from talented, smart people, not abusive, toxic, exploitative bullies on YouTube. And then when you got called out of it, got super defensive. Like, you literally just ran away and blocked me instead of looking at your own criticism. You can't take criticism towards yourself at all. I've still never blocked you after all of the harassment. Can't stand even the tiniest ounce of criticism. You're a monster. You're a
and still 5 years later is talking about this and attacking Rachel and calling her names and untalented and uneducated.
I don't think you're interesting or intelligent or creative or artistic. So why the hell would I take your opinion? You're a loser. Sorry, like, your opinion's nothing to me.
All because she critiqued her poetry. And yet Rachel was one of the people who was absent from Gabby's apology. So in today's video, I sat down with Rachel to talk to her about this, about everything that happened between her and Gabby and how she feels about it. Right, so just so everybody's on the same page, can we do a little bit of a brief overview of events of what we're talking about here?
Okay, so I won't go as in depth as my 3-hour video. But basically, it all started back in, late 2019, I think. I made a video reviewing Gabbie Hanna's first poetry book, and as I said in my video, because I was doing shorter videos back then, I often split longer reviews up into several parts. So this one ended up being a 3-part video, and I did get a little bit snarkier with my reviews, I think, as time went on, as I was getting more and more fed up of covering it. I feel like if I'd just done the one long review, it wouldn't have been as snarky towards the end as I was.
Mm-hmm.
But, it happens. And then it's so hard to remember the actual order that things were posted in. I think somewhere around that time, me and Kyra did our parody of the first book, which was I definitely want to discuss parody with you a bit later in this video, because I think a lot of people misunderstand it and I have a lot of thoughts around it. But I think it was around that time we did our parody book, and it was more just me and Kyra. Well, I always wanted to do parody poetry with her, where it was kind of like Mad Lib style, and she would fill in the blanks. And I said as well that I got the idea from an art channel I really like called Super Ray Dizzle, where she got her dog to pick her art supplies, and then she made a painting of him. So I was like, what if Kyra picked my words and we made a poetry book about her? And then, because the Gabbie Hanna thing was quite popular, I was like, okay, well, we'll make it a parody of Dog Lessons, and then people might actually watch it. And that's how that came about. And then Gabby released a response to a bunch of criticisms, and she tagged me in that, and she kind of spoke about how she was fine with it all because that's art, baby, and all that sort of thing, and art is subjective. And she compared herself to big directors and being like, well, it's okay what people say because I'm super talented anyway. And she called her own book a parody of Shel Silverstein, and I was like, I'm going to respond to this because I think she's making some good points, and some not so good points. And one of the big things I was like, you're misunderstanding Parody. Your book isn't a parody. It's maybe pastiche, but it's not parody. But clearly I was like, she is clearly okay with parody if she's calling her own work parody. And, at this point, my book had already been out and already earned some money for Bassy, and she hadn't said anything about it. I was like, so she's clearly fine with parody. This is all good. And then she reached out to me and was like, hey, I'd love my second book to be in the hands of people who really love poetry. Can I send you a copy, please? And I was like, thank you. Yeah, that's amazing. And she was really nice to me in the little, I think it was a Twitter DM, something like that. We had a little back and forth. She sent the book to me, and I was like, well, in my review, I was like, really, really good that she's reached out. It shows a lot of maturity, a lot of growth. Really commend that. But the book's just kind of disappointing. It felt like she didn't take on board any feedback that she'd gotten, not just from me, but from other people as well. So like a big criticism of the first book was that it was very lazy. It was very surface level. There were a lot of poems that felt like first drafts that just hadn't been worked on at all. It was like her initial scribbles and then just published. And the second book felt like that, but more, in the sense that it felt even less polished than the first book, and there was kind of more to it. And so it was frustrating to see. And I said that, and I posted my video. And then the day after I posted my video, Jimmy Snow was like, so Gabby's reached out to me, and she thinks there might be another video review coming from you of her second book, and I think you should like hang back. I think you should not post it or whatever. I was like, but the video's already out, and she sent me the book. She asked me to review it. Like, I don't get why she's coming to you. And it's like a whole back and forth, and then everything got blown out of proportion, and things got like, everyone got emotional, and then everything just kind of like died down, and I deleted Twitter like a few months later, so I was just like out of that whole sphere. And then the next thing I knew, Gabbie Hanna had a huge, massive meltdown and tagged me in like 40 Instagram stories, calling me an ugly bitch and a loser with no accomplishments, and yeah, just a whole bunch of horrible names. And then I eventually like told her she was clearly going through something, and I hope she had friends and family around her to help her, and then I blocked her. And then a bunch of online like newspapers and magazines and stuff were all like, can you please comment on this? And I was just like, no comment to any of them except one, which I think was Insider, where I said something like, I don't want to comment, but I wish Gabby all the best, or something like that, or I hope she's doing okay, something. Like, you can probably find the quote online. And then I did actually do an interview with, what's the channel? I want to say Black Wolf Company at some point, because I just really liked their channel and I thought he was a really nice guy. And yeah, it was nice to talk about it a bit. And then everything just went quiet for a few years. And then Gabby had another meltdown and was mean to a bunch more other people, and she put herself in danger, and all that stuff happened, and I just kind of stayed quiet. Then she went off the internet, and then then she went off the internet for ages, and I said, at that point, like, I was talking about kind of like bigger, broader topics, and I said something like, yeah, and like, not everyone needs a direct apology to be able to forgive people. Like, sometimes seeing people's actions and that they've changed is enough. Like, so take the Gabbie Hanna thing. She's gone off the internet, she's turned her life around, she showed that she's changed, like, and I really commend that. And like, I wouldn't need an apology from her to forgive her and all that sort of thing. And then just like 2 months later, she was back online calling me stupid and a loser and saying I have no accomplishments and just calling me names at Oxford Union. And then she released a non-apology video, and I was like, well, I'm tired of staying quiet and having everyone walk all over me, so I'm just gonna like definitively share my side. And then I did, and now here we are.
Well, yeah, it's quite a lot, and I think it kind of like puts it into perspective how long this has been going on for. Like, your first review is in 2019. 5 years. Yeah. This is a long time for her to hold this grudge, and personally, I understand I am a chronic grudge holder. I get it, but I hold it all deep inside. I don't throw it out to the world. Yeah. But I just want to make the point again, and you said this, and I think anybody who has followed this story knows this, but the second book, after your first set of reviews, she sent you the second book for the purpose of review, and I feel like I need to restate that every time so that people understand.
I think a lot of people are confused by the timeline as well. I also want to make it really clear, my parody book was out months before she asked me to review her book. So she knew the parody existed. She was fine with the parody existing. She called her own work a parody, and then asked me to review her book, saying, I want it in the hands of people who love poetry, like yourself, meaning me. The parody didn't come out and that flipped a switch in her, like some people think. Like, she was aware of it for, like, months before she wanted me to review her book. So I don't quite understand where the switch happened, or why it happened.
For your parody book, had she ever either privately or publicly commented on that before sending you her book for review, or before going crazy about it online?
She hadn't said anything to me personally, and she hadn't expressed any anger about it personally. I don't know if she said anything in her responding to the critics video, because she ended up deleting that video. So I can't remember.
But it hadn't been made any kind of big deal.
Oh, no, she definitely not complained about it. No, I know that much.
So
Yeah.
your parody book then, I kind of want to touch on some other topics about what you said in a minute, but your parody book.
Yeah.
So that was more of a project with Kyra. It was supposed to be fun.
Yeah.
When it initially went out, how was that received by people generally?
Oh, it was like barely anyone watched the video. I think it got like 25,000 views at first, which is fine. That's what I expected. Like, I didn't expect it to be a big thing. And we sold like a few copies. I made like 50, 60 quid that got donated to Battersea. It wasn't really a big deal. Everyone just thought it was a cute thing between me and Kyra, because it was. Like, the intention was for me and her to do something cute together, and then making it a parody was just like a way for it to get a little bit more attention, was all. But also, I do quite like parody in general. I think it's a great art form in itself, and I think it's a misunderstood art form. So this is a thing that still bothers me, and I think this is one of the reasons why, like, I agreed to like talk to you about this in this video, because I kind of want to make a few things a bit more clear. And also, you're my friend, and you're great. But the parody thing is like a bit of a sticking point for me, because it's the thing that a lot of people get hung up about, and I think it's because they don't understand parody. So the comments I've got from people are like, well, you never parodied anyone else, so it must have been targeted to Gabby. I have people say, parody's only acceptable if you like the work you're parodying, otherwise it's just mean. I've had people say, well, you must have had mean intentions, and you can't deny that. And I'm like, to all of these things, you're wrong. So, one, I have parodied a lot more other work. I had like a whole Instagram parody account of like parodying kind of like Instagram poetry and Atticus and R.H. Thin and people like that. So parody was a thing that I'd been making for a while at that point. Dogger Lessons was just the first time I combined parodying other works with a cute project with Kyra. That was kind of all that made that unique. What was the other thing? Oh yeah, and then me and Kyra went on to do other things as well. So like we did a video where she like painted with like peanut butter on cling film, and she did a licky painting, and I called it something silly like my dog paints better than Picasso, and you know, little things like that. So like there was nothing specifically malicious about what me and Kyra did. It was just kind of part of a long list of projects we'd done together, and also part of like a long stream of parodies I'd done of content in general. Yeah, the second one was like people were saying that parody is only acceptable if you actually like the work that you're parodying, and I'm like, that is absolutely not true. That has never been the point of parody throughout the history of parody. And I made a whole video looking at the history of parody, the purpose of parody, and it explains it far better than I can here. But basically, parody started as a way to critique other people's work, and it makes critique of work more what's the word I'm looking for? Accessible. There we go. So it makes critique of work more accessible. So before, people would critique a piece of work and be like, well, I don't like this technique. I think this is a bad technique. I love this technique. I think this is great. I think this is terrible. And it would always be quite technical. It would sometimes be a little bit dense and dry and stuff like that. And then a lot of people came along and they're like, well, let's just parody it instead. Let's take all these things that we're critiquing and make our own version that is exaggerated and humorous and over the top and points out the flaws without us having to say, and the flaw is here and here and here. Because instead, you use this artwork to make it apparent where the flaws are. So like in my parody piece, like my big critique of Gabby was that her poems were shallow and unpolished and lazily done. So I made the pieces with Kyra kind of shallow and surface level because it's just about her like life as a dog. They were all first drafts. They were all sillily made and rushed and Mad Lib style with her and everything. So it was pointing out the flaws in her work and exaggerating them to a humorous level. Parody has not just been used to kind of critique things, but also to kind of push social change. So a lot of parodies were about pushing back against genre conventions, or about, being like, for a long time they were like, well, rich white men have done way too much of this, let's parody their work to show how ridiculous it is and show why we need more diversity of voices and things like that. That was a big thing. And yeah, to this day some people do parody work that they like and think that's great, but a lot of people also parody work that they don't like. And one of the big things in my video as well was, I think there's a big double standard between women parodying work and men parodying work, and how men get away with it way more. So you didn't see people having all this backlash when Cody Ko made parodies of Jake Paul's music. You didn't see people having backlash like this when James Marriott parodied the songs of like Lele Pons and stuff like that. Because they parodied work they did not like and that they had publicly mocked in a non-constructive way, but people were absolutely fine with it. People aren't going around calling them mean and bitchy and ugly and whatever. It's just accepted. And the other thing that really bothers me is people trying to like assign malice where there was none. And I'm like, I can accept that I wasn't perfect in this situation, and I have apologized for the fact that that book hurt Gabby's feelings, and I'll continue to apologize for that, because regardless of my intentions, they hurt her, and I'm sorry for that. But I'm not going to sit here and pretend I was trying to be malicious and like backtrack and be like, oh, well, let me just go back and rewrite history and pretend I was trying to be mean. And I'm like, because I wasn't. I thought it was a cute project with Kyra that she would never see, that would just hopefully educate people a little bit more about parody and poetry in general and raise a bit of money for a good cause. But there was never anything malicious behind it, other than like a passion for poetry and wanting to critique bad, lazy poetry. But there was nothing malicious or personal towards Gabby, and I'm not going to pretend that there was just because it makes some people online feel better. I don't know.
No, you
Anyway, I
shouldn't
talked a lot,
have to
I'm sorry.
do that. No, that's the point. You're here to speak. If you didn't say anything, this would be entirely useless. People would click off immediately. Funnily enough, I think it was before you did your dog-a-lessons thing, I had actually been doing live streams where I was writing parody poetry of Gabbie Hanna's poetry, but I don't think it was it wasn't quite parody. I'm bad at the I have watched your video about parody, but I'm bad at the definitions. But I was just writing shitty Instagram poetry, basically, was what I was calling it. And I was planning to like publish this. I had so many of these poems, and then I just kind of forgot. So
I can't believe I didn't know that.
No, well, it was before anybody was watching me. So this was like, I think before I started making drama content more full-time and commentary and stuff. So it was when I was still like semi-gaming channel. So it was a bit of an odd time. But I wanted to ask, if you had known in advance that this was gonna upset her, or alternatively, if after you'd published the book and the video, she had reached out to you without calling you names and been reasonable, would you still have continued? I'm going to interject here quickly just to say something. Please bear with me for a minute. This is not a sponsor. I have been working on a book for several years. Some of you will know this already. Some of you will be keeping up with it. But I asked my audience if they would be interested in backing a Kickstarter for this, because it's something that I want to self-publish just because of the state of the publishing industry and because I wanted full control of my book. And you guys were interested, and a lot of people have backed this already. So I just want to say a massive thank you to everybody who has backed the Kickstarter. My book is a dark fantasy. It's got mermaids and fae. It's inspired by Irish mythology. There's gay characters, a lot of different POVs, things like that. You can read more about the book itself in the Kickstarter and more about why I want to do that, but if you would like to read more about that, or if you're interested in pledging to the Kickstarter to help me make this book a reality, because self-publishing is really expensive. There's a lot of editing that needs to go into the book, cover design, a lot of time and effort and different people who are involved in that process to make it an actually good book. There is still some time to donate to the Kickstarter. Every little bit that people pledge helps, even if it's $1, and there are certain rewards you can get for certain tiers. So you can get a paperback, a signed paperback, ebook, bookmarks, that's coming up. That's actually one of our next stretch goals. Prints, stickers, stuff like that. Plenty of things that you can get if you pledge to this, so check it out, link is in the description. I really appreciate if you do that. There is still, I think, about 2-3 weeks left of the Kickstarter, and we're really close to our next stretch goal, so once we hit that, there will be extra rewards for everybody. So thank you so much again. Please do check it out. It really, really helps me, and I really appreciate it. Okay, love you all. Let's get back into the rest of the video. But I wanted to ask, if you had known in advance that this was gonna upset her, or alternatively, if after you'd published the book and the video, she had reached out to you without calling you names and been reasonable, would you still have continued with it? Would you have put it out, or would you have retracted it?
No, of course not. If I'd known I was gonna hurt her feelings with it, of course I wouldn't have done it. Like, I don't know anyone who would do that.
Yeah, no, I only ask because I want to make it clear to people that this really wasn't something that you were doing with the intent of, like, as you already said, maliciously, with the intent of hurting her, but it's an important thing for people to know.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it gets hard though where it comes to things like reviews and stuff, because again, and a lot of people keep saying it online, but reviews are for the reader, not the author. So if you'd asked me the same question about, like, would I have still reviewed her books knowing that have hurt her feelings? I don't know. Because it's so hard and it's so complicated. Because on the one hand, like, I think, because this is where the Jimmy thing came in, and this is why I was so conflicted when that happened. And I asked people, like, am I overreacting here? Because he was like, she's worried, be careful how you review this. And I was also like, I'm not going to change my review of a book that she asked me to review in case it hurts her feelings, because then that compromises my integrity as a reviewer, because I'm giving, like, a biased review. I don't know. On the one hand, her feelings don't change the content of the book, therefore that can't change my opinion of the book. Therefore, why should I change my review when it's objectively about the content? But I think if I'd known she was going to see them, and if I'd known she was going to be so upset by it, I would have reined in a little bit of my snarkiness in the third video in the series. That's what I would have changed. Actually, I would have just changed that anyway. I think I was a little bit snarky in that one, and I do regret it. But it's just part of being human, isn't it? Again, there was nothing, like, mean or malicious in that. It was just a little snarkier than the others.
Yeah, I see what you mean, but I personally don't think you did anything wrong there. I think it was entertaining. But then again, you are so much nicer than me, so maybe that's part of it.
Apparently not. Have you not heard? I'm a massive bitch. Gabbie Hanna says.
Yeah, true. She hasn't actually acknowledged my existence ever. I don't even know if she knows I exist, so I might just be the nicest person in the world to her. And that's the only opinion that matters. But I do wonder, and I assume you've thought about this, if when Jimmy reached out to you about your review, if that just was an attempt to make you give a good review, to guilt you into giving a good review, because she had already sent you the book and maybe hoped that. Yeah, you do.
So yeah, I mean, I feel I still don't really know what to think about it. And I feel like I have all these theories in my head, but then I also realize, like, am I just being paranoid and crazy? Because there was a weird timeline to it all, where not long after Gabby released that responding to my critics video, she did that. She tagged me in it. She made sure that, like, it was very public that this was primarily about me and a few other people. So I think, like, James Marriott was tagged in there and stuff like that. I think maybe Angelica Rawls was tagged in there. I'm not sure who. We also know she has a problem with Lesser. And so that was, like, very clear. And then, like, maybe like a week or so later, she started interacting publicly with Jimmy Snow on Twitter, who at the time was one of my few, like, public YouTube friends. And he was also the most famous or most popular of them all. And I was like, that's an interesting choice, because they had nothing in common. They didn't have any audience crossover. Gabby was starting to be a bit more religious, and Jimmy Snow was an atheist channel. He went by Mr. Atheist. And I was like, it's kind of weird that after kind of mentioning me, she then befriends, like, my most famous friend. But I thought, no, I'm being silly. That's stupid. Like, whatever. Just let it go. Didn't say anything to anyone. Didn't think any more of it. Was whatever. And then I saw it happening more and more in, like, the lead up to her book being released. And then she reached out to me, and I was like, oh, this is nice. This is wonderful. Shows a lot of maturity and growth. Maybe, like, people like Jimmy are rubbing off on her in a good way. Like, this is great. And then the day after I released my video, after Jimmy sent me that message, I was like, Gabby's been talking to me. Like, she didn't tell me to say this, but she's been talking to me and worrying. And I'm like, has this been her plan all along? And I know that sounds so crazy and so paranoid, and, like, people probably aren't like, well, because I'm nobody. So why would Gabbie Hanna concoct this whole plan of, like, befriending one of my only friends to, like, do it? It makes no sense, and it sounds crazy. But a part of me is still like, yeah, but what if?
Well, you do have to remember, firstly, you're not a nobody, but secondly, you're definitely not a nobody to Gabby, because she has brought you up so many times, has made, I think, about 700,000 Instagram stories about you.
It's a lot.
She is still talking about you 5 years later. She's mentioning you in the Oxford Union stuff. So, I mean, I personally, and obviously for everybody watching, these are just opinions. We're not accusing anybody of anything. Obviously, this is all just opinions and stuff. But I do think she is a quite calculated person and can be quite calculated. The timing is weird. You know, it could be a coincidence. But also, at the same time, she's been in the game longer than you. And I think at this time she probably had a PR person, because I remember when she did that article with BuzzFeed, she had a PR person that was mentioned in that article. So it might have been something from Gabby, it might have been something from the PR team, it might have been something from her friends, or it was all a just very, very strange coincidence. And she also sent you the book and then got mad about you reviewing the book. I wouldn't put it past her.
And the other thing that's interesting is there were a couple of other YouTubers that I wasn't, like, friends with at the time, but I was friendly. So, like, Ready to Glare, I chatted to a little bit here and there. Creepshow Art, I chatted to a little bit here and there. But it wasn't publicly known that we were friendly at that point. The only person I kind of had in common with Gabby, where it was publicly known I was friends with them, was Jimmy Snow. And Ready to Glare and Creepshow Art both said, well, Gabby's not said anything to us about this. But she did to Jimmy, the one person she knew I was friends with. So this wasn't like she was just going around chatting to her YouTube friends about me. She only chatted about me with the one person she knew me personally. So, again, it could be a coincidence, but
that's definitely a choice. I'm sorry, I'm gonna say it. That's a choice. If you don't say it to anybody else and you're saying it to the one person that's also friends with you, like, come on. I don't believe
it
for
would
a second.
be a bit like if I was worried about something Elise was doing, and instead of talking to, like, any of my other friends, I only spoke to you, and I, like, was like, you know, I'm not saying you should speak to Elise, but and it's like, do you know what I mean?
Yeah, no, it does feel very much like that. But let's get back into then the parody aspect of things, because I wanted to ask you then, so you mentioned, I mean, now she's calling her poetry an art book, but then back then she had said it was a parody. Do you want to give, like, maybe a sort of a definition of, maybe, well, you already explained parody, but of, you mentioned maybe it's pastiche, why it's not parody, basically.
So, when you parody something, you have to kind of understand it on a technical level, and you might be pointing out the good bits or the bad bits, but you kind of have to understand the technicalities of it, and then you take it to another level, and you exaggerate certain bits, or you downplay certain bits, and you're kind of pushing these boundaries with it, and making a big kind of point of saying, like, well, here's how I feel about this technique, and here's how I feel about this technique, but you, instead of, like, just explaining it like you would in a review or a critique, you show it, you exemplify it. pastiche isn't necessarily about the critique or the exaggeration, it's simply an imitation. So like an imitation of someone's style or an era style or something like that. So I have a lot of clothes from this company called the Hippie Shake, and they're kind of very reminiscent of like 70s and 60s designs and stuff like that, and they take inspiration from certain, like, you know, they've got like a Ladies of the Canyon collection and stuff like that. In a way, you could say that's like homage or pastiche, because it's an imitation of the style at the time. It's inspired by it, and then kind of like, you know, they do their own thing with it. But it's not in any way like a parody, because they're not exaggerating anything for humorous effect or critique or anything like that. It's simply imitation, and that's kind of what pastiche or homage is. Parody has that critical element to it. So Gabby calling her work a parody of Shel Silverstein just isn't, it doesn't make any sense. Because while she's using some kind of childlike elements of imagery and rhyme scheme that Shel Silverstein used, there's no critique of Silverstein's work, there's no critical analysis of Silverstein's work, there's no exaggeration of it, there's just nothing to make it parody. It's not taking something about Silverstein's work and making it humorous, it's just saying, oh, this was a funny thing he did, maybe I'll try and do something funny like that as well. Which is why it's more pastiche or homage. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes perfect sense. I just thought, and I know you've talked about this as well, and obviously the videos that you've done are going to be in the description for people to get, you know, your fuller thought out, not me putting you on the spot answers. But yeah, if it makes sense to me, I'm sure people can follow, because I am very tired today. So I do think, and I want to know if you agree with me here, because I vaguely think that she has kind of changed what she's calling her poetry based on whatever kind of suits her narrative at the time. So like, I don't think she ever intended it to be parody. I think she just said that. Yeah,
I think she used that as a defense when people were being critical, and she was like, well, you can't be too critical because it's parody. And then later when she kind of like came at me, she was like, well, I'm actually a bestseller, so this is good, this is like an art piece, this is what poetry is supposed to be. And she was using like her stats and sales numbers and how much money she earned to like prove that it was real art, whereas before, when she was getting criticism, it wasn't real art, it was just parody. And it was just whatever's convenient.
And let's remember that Colleen Hoover is a bestseller, so that's not really a basis of good abilities, is it?
But Colleen Ballinger is also a bestseller, and she photoshopped a vulva onto a baby, so...
Oh, I try to forget that piece of information. That's not something I like to store in my brain. So if you don't mind, I'm going to pull that one back out again, and that's not going to be there. I think...
wish I could erase bits of my brain sometimes.
Oh, I'm really good at it. I'll teach you. I forget things by accident as well. Just don't have a good memory, which is why I think, I don't know if you've been involved with the running joke of me not knowing anybody or anything, like in the chat when I'm like, I don't know who that is. What are you talking about? I don't know if I've never known, and like, or I've just forgotten. So
I think me and Elise just put it down to you being like quite a bit younger than us, and we're like, oh, she's just younger, we're just showing our age here, it's fine.
You guys act like you're like 20 years older than me. We're like almost the same age.
Yeah, but you're still the baby, so we have to like look after you.
Fine, I'll accept it.
I have found, like, as I'm getting older though, my memory, like, I say as I'm getting older, I'm only 31, like, but the last couple of years in particular, my memory has been getting so bad. Like, I used to have this like really good memory where I could be like, well, actually 3 months ago you said these exact words on this exact day, and now I'm like, I think I maybe knew someone like around about that time last year, but I don't know who they are. Terrible. I just can't remember a thing now.
No, I get you. Fun. Which is also for making videos like these and making commentary videos, I can never remember what happened. But like, I had to go back and watch all of the videos that I made about Gabbie Hanna so I could remember what she had done. I was like, I know I didn't like her, I just can't fully remember. Like, I remember the stuff about you because that's a bit different, we talk regularly, so I'll remember that stuff, but the other stuff I'm like, she did what? And there was makeup brushes, something about poetry. But
I found that like when this all got brought back up again, and like Gabby did her Oxford Union thing, I was like, wait, like I'm seeing all these comments about me and people saying all this stuff, and I was like, well, did that actually happen? Like, was I actually as horrible as they say? And I started to genuinely believe it, and I was like seeing all this stuff about me online, and you really internalize it. You're like, yeah, that must be what happened. And then I went back and watched the videos. I was like, wait, this isn't how people are saying. And because I didn't like remember, I had to like rewatch my videos. And I was like, this is not at all what happened. And it was, yeah, a little bit crazy.
So I think, yeah, so people basically think that you were horrible in those videos and that you were just bullying her, basically. Am I right?
Yeah. But
Which
I literally,
didn't happen.
like, I even have some videos where I make a point of saying, like, but this isn't about Gabby's character, like, this is about the book. And, like, I'll be like, because I started the video series being like, Gabby's in a lot of drama right now, but I don't care about that. I just want to review the book. And then people still made it out like it was this personal attack on her. And I'm like, talking about like rhyme schemes and like, you know, she's using this onomatopoeia here. She's using this kind of imagery here. These are homonyms here. And like, I was doing it like on this technical level and everyone's like, but you still got very personal. I was like, where was the personal? The most personal thing I think I saw was in the third video where I made a comment about like Gabby, like, it was like an attempt at a poem being kind of having like a feminist message, but it just wasn't, and it kind of missed the point and it fell flat. And I think I made a sarcastic comment about like, oh, who'd have thought Gabby would get feminism wrong, something like that. I think that's like as personal as it got.
I feel like that's probably, if I had said that in my video, that would be the nicest thing that I said. So, you know, I think you're okay. And for the aggression that she had for you, I mean, I think people know by now it was very disproportionate and very out of nowhere, considering everything in the timeline of events.
The thing is, I understand her being upset about bad reviews. No one wants a bad review, and they are hard to see sometimes. Like, I've spoken myself about, like, I got a few, like, 2-star reviews and stuff for my poetry book. I actually found them really helpful because they've given me like pointers for where to improve in this second book, which is great. But yeah, when you first read them, it's a bit like, oh, that hurts a bit. And then you actually go back analytically and you're like, oh, actually they've got a point there. No, maybe I don't agree with that one. Oh, that one's quite useful. And so I understand Gabby being upset. But if she'd come back, and this is what I've said from the beginning, if she'd come back and said, actually, I disagree with your review because this is what I was trying to do. This is the technical aspect here. I don't agree with your point here. Actually, yeah, you may be right. I could have done this better. I would have been like, amazing. I would have had nothing but good things to say about that.
Yeah, and I mean,
but
the thing is, art is subjective, right? So even things that are technically not the best, there's an audience for it somewhere.
Can be really enjoyable. Yeah.
Yeah, so if she had just said, well, I like what I did, here's why I like it, you know, thanks for your feedback, but no, that could have been the end of it. But instead it's you're stupid and you're untalented, which I wanted to point out as well. I'm really glad that in your video that you just did, so if people haven't watched it, again, in the description to check it out, but after her apology you made a whole sort of, not response, but just a video about everything, which you mentioned already. And when you started talking about your own intelligence and stuff, I was so like proud of you for talking about that, because you are such an intelligent person. I mean, talking with you now, I feel dumb. So I'm joking.
You're not even a little bit dumb.
It depends on the day, just how much brain power is.
Yeah. We're all a bit dumb sometimes.
it was just nice to hear you, you know, acknowledge that you are an intelligent person, you are a talented person. And
that's been a really hard place for me to get to, though, because I never used to like saying that stuff or admitting that stuff. And I think, especially as women, we're always told we have to be humble. We have to like downplay our accomplishments. We have to downplay our strengths and stuff like that. Especially because like you don't want to intimidate a man, right? You know, you can't be too intelligent or you're going to intimidate men. That's like a big thing, and men do have a lot of anger towards intelligent, successful women online. Like, it's just, I'm sure you see it as well, like in your comments sometimes. But yeah, like, so when I started YouTube, I would definitely downplay that stuff. And on the one hand, I think maybe it made me more watchable to a male audience. But then over the years, like, I don't really have a male audience anymore. Like, my viewers are like anywhere between 80 and 85% women at any given time. And I'm like, well, I don't want to downplay my strengths anymore because that's just teaching other women to downplay theirs. So, like, I know I'm intelligent and I've come to accept that and love that about myself. So why can't I say I'm an intelligent person and encourage all my viewers watching to acknowledge their strengths as well? Because some of them are going to be damn intelligent and more intelligent than me, and I want them to be able to say that as well. I want them to be able to say that they're kind people, they're good people, they work hard, and, like, you know, whatever other strengths they have. I want my audience to be able to say that and feel that about themselves. And if I can't do it about myself, then it's just a bad example to them, isn't it?
No, I think
a lot of people. Sorry, no, you go ahead. Sorry.
I was just going to say, I think it was really admirable that you actually did stand up for yourself in that way.
Thank you. There were people who didn't like it though. There were, and strangely, it was actually women. It was women in the comments who were like, "I think you went too far with that. You didn't need to say that." I'm like, but why shouldn't I say it? Why shouldn't I say that I'm intelligent? Why shouldn't I acknowledge that I'm creative? That I've literally won prizes for literary analysis? Why shouldn't I say that, like, I went to a damn good university and I worked damn hard to get there? Like, why shouldn't I?
Yeah, and I do. I mean, I have some thoughts on sort of, what's the word that I'm looking for? Sort of elitism in the kind of review space. And I do understand that you need to understand the technical aspects of what you're reviewing. But even if you weren't this super intelligent woman, I don't think saying, well, I think you're stupid and you don't have any talents is a fair criticism to a critic.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. And I think, again, it's complicated because I think, like, if you want to do a technical review and analysis, then you do need that knowledge. But to just give a general review, anyone can do that, and anyone's opinion is valid. Like, you can know nothing about poetry, and you either love the book or hated the book. That opinion is still valid. And, like, this is something that I do wish I'd made a bit clearer in my video, is that, again, my reviews are for the reader, not for Gabby. So really, it doesn't matter if she thinks I'm intelligent or not, because my opinion still stands, and it's still valid. And it's up to the other readers watching that video to decide whether they care about my opinion or not Gabby. And some people might only want a review from someone that they deem as intelligent. Some people might only want a review from people who are kind of, like, being a bit more lighthearted and silly and just giving a personal opinion. Like, it's all valid. It's all good. Like, absolutely anyone can give a review. It's fine.
Yeah. I did want to bring up on the topic of sort of women being treated slightly differently online. There were other
just
people,
slightly.
Just slightly. You know, it's all fine here. Everything's okay. Being a YouTuber absolutely didn't turn me into a feminist at all. No, but there were other people who reviewed Gabby's book. One of them was James Marriott, who you've mentioned. And again, you've talked about this, but I want to know your thoughts. If there was anything related to, you know, the different treatment of women and misogyny as to why she went after you specifically, or if you think it might have been a different reason.
There was definitely a lot of misogyny around it all. And I don't think with Gabby's new, like, Christian era, we can deny she's a misogynist anymore. With her whole modesty culture, women need to change how they dress so they don't tempt other people's husbands. That's just pure misogyny. And when I've called her views misogynistic before, people have been like, well, I'm like, no, we can't deny it now. We've seen it. And the problem is she's not the only one guilty of it. I know myself, I've had to unpack a hell of a lot of internalized misogyny over the years, and I think it just kind of comes with being a woman in a patriarchal society. We all have some unpacking and unlearning to do. And I just do find in general, people are far more lenient with men online than women. Men get away with making way harsher jokes, with honestly doing less work and getting more reward for it. Women have way more pressure on them to constantly be nice. That's the big thing. You never go on the comments of, like, an Einaba video or a James Marriott video or a Nicholas Duras video and see people complaining that, like, oh, I think you could have been a little bit nicer there. Oh, I don't like it when you're unkind. Like, you barely ever see that. But with women, it's always like, well, I didn't like your tone there. You didn't seem nice enough. Oh, sarcasm, that doesn't quite seem kind. I'm like, fine when men do it. But with women, we're always, again, we're told to be humble. We're told to be quiet. We're told to be meek. We're told to be kind. because people care more about how we present our opinions than what our opinions are. Whereas with men, it's all about the substance. They can get away with doing it however they want. And Gabby did mostly single out the women. So she was very nasty to me. She was very nasty to Angelica Rolls. But people like James Marriott got away with it. She went on podcasts with people like Nicholas Diorio and Keemstar, where they all sat around calling me an ugly bitch. And like, Keemstar was one of them who did it. Nicholas Diorio was one of the people who did it. And they were all laughing, going, ha ha ha, what a bitch, what a bitch. And I'm like, do you not see how misogynistic this is? Keemstar and Nicholas Diorio are far meaner and crueler to so many people every single day than I was in any of those videos. Yeah, I'm the bitch. It's insane.
I don't know how I missed her going on a podcast with Nicholas Diorio. I don't. Maybe I knew it at the time. I've kind of only recently stored in my brain who he is, and I think it's because he might have followed me or I followed him briefly on Twitter, and then one day I just kept seeing his annoying tweets, and one day I snapped at him for something really stupid, like something completely unrelated. I think I said have you ever had an original thought in your life? Because he said something similar to somebody else. And I was but it was so not what I was annoyed at him for. I just was sick of seeing his stupid tweets everywhere. So yeah, that's definitely a choice to go on to those podcasts and call you a bitch. And then now, like you mentioned with the whole modesty thing, which is something I want to make a video about anyway. It's a very bizarre route that she's taken, and it seems to all kind of stem from the same place, I feel, where her feelings about things are the only right feelings. So she felt her poetry was the best thing in the world. She felt she deserved good reviews and good reviews only. So that's what she went out on the attack for. And now that she feels that women should be modest, when she's suddenly changed her mind about that in a week, now everybody else needs to do that, and anybody who doesn't do that is just a disgrace to humankind. She did not say those words. I don't think I am exaggerating here, but that was kind of the gist of it.
She's called women who dare to have any cleavage on show, she's called them trashy. She's called them horrible, horrible names like that. She's, basically said they're going to hell, all this sort of thing. You can't tempt other people's husbands. Horrible stuff. Absolutely horrible.
I mean, hell's going to be a great party, so that's... I'm looking forward to it. It'll be a fun time. I'm gay, so I'm going there anyway. There's no hope for me. I do wonder how she feels about stuff like that now. Can the comments please let us know if they would like a full conversation between us about religion and stuff? Because I think we've never really spoken about this stuff, and I mean, I wouldn't call myself an atheist necessarily, but I don't believe I'm not religious. So, and I was
maybe
raised as an
agnostic?
Atheist. Yeah, agnostic, but a little bit spiritual in a bit of a woo-woo kind of way, but also aware that that's probably
you do
not
like
true.
Your horoscope stuff.
I do like my horoscope stuff. I love my horoscope stuff, and everything is the fault of the moon. And people think I'm joking, but I'm not, and I truly believe the universe is sentient, but we'll get into that another day.
When you first said that to me and Elise, we were both like, what? Wait, do you believe this? And we were like, I still don't really know what to make of it, but I'm just like, you know what? It's harmless. You believe it. If it makes you feel good, you go for it.
Yeah, see, me thinking that the placement of the planets is putting me in a bad mood does not make me go out and tell women that they're trashy. So I feel like it's kind of harmless. Even with religion, I have no problem with religion as long as it's for you, not to tell everybody else what to do.
Yeah. I really liked it the other day when Elise was having that really good day, and you were like, see, the planets are aligning.
No, because the day before that,
so sweet.
But no, it was the day before that I had a really good day and loads of really good things were happening, and I was like, no, the planets have done something. I think Pluto is in it. Sorry, nobody wants to hear this. But
I think it's very sweet.
Do say in the comments if you want a full religious chat between us, because I think I didn't even ask you if you want to do that, but I'm sure you'd be up for it.
Yeah, it's fine. Yeah,
it'd be
always.
A fun thing.
You know me, I'll always talk about fundies and all that stuff.
And I do think I have an interesting perspective being raised atheist and stuff, and my mum did actually used to be a born-again Christian before I was born. And then she studied theology and became an atheist.
Yep.
So
it's like Bart Ehrman all over again.
yeah, but let's get back to the topic at hand, because I think we've fallen into
Maybe
a bit of a
off
hole
topic,
here.
yeah.
That's okay. I think it was fun. So back to the Gabby stuff. So she's still going, and I kind of want to, and I know you've talked about this, but her apology, that's coming on the back of, I know there was a few months in between, but on the back of her doing the Oxford Union talk, which, if people don't know what I'm talking about, there's a link in the description. I made a video about that. But she did an interview at Oxford Union where she was talking about criticism, and she didn't name you, but it was quite clear that you are probably who she was talking about, saying, I can absolutely take criticism because I sent my stuff to all my friends, but you have to be careful who you take your criticism for, because you're a loser, you're untalented and uneducated, and your opinion is nothing to me. So, how did
she
you...
also kept calling me a girl, which really bothered me, because she kept doing that in her Instagram rants as well. Anyone she disagrees with isn't a woman, we're a girl. And I'm like, Gabby, I'm basically your age. That's like 18 months between, as if that, like, have some respect.
Is that all there is
like,
between
you're talking...
you? Oh dear. Okay, this makes it worse. It really does, because I mean, maybe I wouldn't count, but somebody maybe like 2-3 years younger than me, if she called them a girl now, could kind of get it. Maybe it would still be a little bit ick, but if that's all there is between you, it's like, okay, well, that's definitely a choice.
I'm pushing 32. Like, that's not a girl.
No, that's not a girl.
At this age, my mum had like 2 kids and had been married for God knows how many years at that point. Not a girl. My sister-in-law also had 2 kids at this age, was married, a doctor, not a girl. Like, I know some people view me differently because I'm unmarried and don't want kids, but still an adult woman.
Yeah,
You know,
I mean,
that doesn't change.
Being married or being a mother does not make you a woman. You are simply just a woman. Like, that just is what it is. So sorry, Gabby. But so I know you knew about the Oxford Union thing pretty much when it came out, and you've touched on that already.
I saw Fat Sajak's video, because I'm a little bit of a super fan. I've watched like all her videos as they come out. So when I was like, oh god, Gabbie Hanna, I don't know if I really want to watch it, and I clicked on it because I watch her videos anyway. And then I was like, oh, that's about me. That's not nice. And then I went and watched like the whole thing, and I was like, yeah, it's really disappointing.
Which actually, this reminds me that I had wanted to point out and to make a slight bit of an apology here, which is that I'm pretty sure that you may have sent her video on Gabby's Oxford Union thing when it came out. And then a few months later, I made my video and completely forgot that I had seen it. So that's also in the description. And I have watched it. It's good. Watch it. There's a lot of links for you guys. But then
I think Fat Sajak's great. She's one of those people who she pushes back against this idea that women need to be like kind and quiet. Like, she's great. She knows she's smart. She knows she's funny. She's not afraid to say it. She's got this dry, sarcastic sense of humor that I love. It's just, she's brilliant.
No, I like her as well. I'm not a super fan, so I don't watch all of her videos, but I don't watch all of anyone's videos. Besides maybe like Ryan Krause, but he uploads once in a blue moon. So
I do not know who that is.
Oh, he's just a vlogger. He lives... Sorry, I said that like in a really mean way. Like, I just meant he's not a commentary channel. He's a vlogger. He lives in Japan. His videos are just nice to like eat too. So anyway, I wanted to ask then, when the apology came out, if we're calling it an apology, I suppose, she said sorry to vague sort of groups of people, did not name anybody, and did not apologize to you or to her critics or anything like that. Anything that might have signaled you.
No apology to Jessie. No apology to the entire trans community. No apology to Angelica Rolls. No apology to the Dominic person that she said called her ugly when he didn't. No apology to Oscar Wilde. Like, none of that. Yeah, all those people that she targeted during that breakdown where she started with me and then went on to everyone else. No apologies to any of them.
And to be perfectly clear for everybody watching, she's never apologized to you privately.
No.
So I feel like even if she has changed and is all Christian now, just a few months before this, she was calling you names again. So it's safe to assume she didn't mean you in her apology. And my theory is that because she said at the end, and to anybody who feels they owe me an apology, we're good now. I feel like she still thinks you're in the wrong here, even though you just critiqued her poetry, but she attacked you. How did you sort of feel about that when you saw it?
I think you know how I felt.
Yeah, but they don't.
I was furious. Again, I don't want to speak to Gabby's motives because I don't know her, and we can only speculate on what she was thinking. But I feel like she wanted to be able to say, I've apologized to everyone. I've wiped the slate clean. You can't criticize me for anything in my past now. And she just wanted to start again without actually doing any of the work. Because I don't believe she's actually sorry for those things she said to me or about me or anyone else. I don't think she's sorry. Like, I genuinely did not believe a word of it. I think she said the bare minimum she could get away with to be able to claim she'd apologized and cleared the slate. But
and
again, it's like a poetry. It's bare minimum. It's lazy. It's surface level. There's no actual real work gone into it. And I know that sounds harsh, but I
do. This reminds me of something I had wanted to say earlier. Her poetry, she has, I don't remember if it was her first or her second poetry book. I think it was her second one, where she has one in it that's something like, I wrote this because I'm on a deadline, basically.
Oh, the filler one, yeah.
Yeah. And I think if she had leaned into that for her book, it actually would have been quite funny. If she had admitted to both herself and to everybody else that that's what this book was. It was a load of filler that she rushed through, but she put in some drawings and people might like it and her fans might like it. I don't think there would have been a problem, really. Like, you could still critique it, obviously, but I don't think it would have been such a big deal. I don't know why she couldn't just say that.
It could have honestly been an interesting opportunity to kind of critique and to some extent parody the publishing world and this push we have today for media to have quantity over quality. She could have made a big statement about that, but she didn't. She, instead of kind of critiquing that and pushing back against it and creating something that critiqued it as a whole, she leaned into it and was like, oh, well, you want quantity over quality, I'll just give you that. Ha ha ha, how funny. And it's like, well, it's still not a clever use of space in your book. It's not a clever use of the message. It's not actually saying anything. It's how's the best way to word this? It would be like, so a lot of people use poetry to make big political statements, obviously, right? And so you have people throughout the years who have made poetry to push back against racism, against social inequality, against like homophobia and transphobia, like all these different things. Imagine if you had, for example, a poet writing a poem that was meant to push back and critique a homophobic society, and instead they were just like, actually, I'm just going to write a bunch of homophobic sentiments and publish it. Like, you had this opportunity to critique the issue, but you just chose to be the issue. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I can think of an example of this, but I can't remember the name of the book. I told you recently I've been watching loads of reviews for terrible books because it helps me to get in the mood to write because I don't feel so inferior.
You know, a lot of my audience say that. They're like, oh, I love your terrible book reviews. Like, it makes me feel better about my own work and, like, shows me where not to go wrong.
Yeah, no, it definitely does work. But there's one channel I was watching, I think she's called Reads with Rachel, and she reviewed a book.
I've heard of her, yeah.
Yeah, I can't remember the name of the book. It was something with puppet in it, I think, but it's set in this place called Dementia, and it's got, like, loads of, like, mental health stuff, and it's got a representation of DID in it, but it's like the typical split personality, like good and evil personality, like the core personality and the evil one. But she wrote in her author's notes, like, this is, this is how we view things in society. It's stigmatized because that's how we view it in society. It's like, but in the book, you just leaned into the stigmatization. You didn't actually, like, kind of do anything with that there, So I get what you mean. Obviously, it's, not quite to the same level when we're talking about Gabby and the publishing industry and stuff like that, but it's still a situation.
It's the same sort of thing, yeah. No, it definitely makes sense. I think it's a great example.
But if she then, say she did another video, right, and she's like, I listened to everybody, I want to apologize to Jessie Smiles, to Rachel Oates, to Angelica Oles, to all the people. How would you feel about it then? Do you think you would feel any differently after this being dragged on for 5 years?
That's a difficult one, and I don't know. Because on the one hand, I don't want to think that, like, anyone's beyond redemption. I feel like everyone can grow and change and be better, and I would hope that she can be better. But at the same time, like, I feel like her just saying words now doesn't really mean much, because her words don't have meaning anymore. Like, we know she's happy to lie in front of a camera. We know she's happy to change the story when she wants to. Her words don't mean anything. The only thing that's going to make up for it is action over a prolonged period of time. If she can prove to me and everyone else that she's not this mean girl anymore, that she's not going to be attacking people, if she can prove that she is going to stop with her transphobia and, like, actively speak out against it, then great. If she can prove that she is going to stop with her misogyny, both internalized and aimed at others, and speak out against it, then great. But at the minute, she's not showing that she's doing any of that, or that she's even planning to do any of that. So even if she got on a camera and said, I'm sorry, it wouldn't mean anything, because her actions aren't backing it up.
No, I get what you mean. I obviously am not in the position that you're in. I have never met her wrath, and I hope I never do, because I will not handle that very well. I'm going to get myself cancelled with the names that I will spew at her. But I feel like if I was in your position, it would be very hard to take any kind of apology seriously at this point, because again, she's just kept bringing it up, and I think there's a bit of a misconception that you've been bringing this up. These are kind of the first few times that you've even talked about it in a longer format. I think you've been quite hesitant to do that.
I did the Black Wolf Company interview in 2020, then I made my video, and now this. Like, that's it. And I know I made, like, some videos on her and stuff back in 2022, but all of that was before I knew she was upset with me. Like, the minute I knew she was upset, I stopped it. Haven't said anything negative, like, publicly. I've been trying to avoid it as much as possible. And it's hard sometimes because, like, in other videos, I wanted to, like, reference her poems as comparisons. And I'm like, well, can't do that. And it's kind of frustrating because it feels in a way that, like, I've been censoring myself and not being able to make as good a points as I wanted to because I didn't want to upset her. I feel like every time I could have said something, I've not. And now I'm kind of sick of it. Because there's Gabbie Hanna and there's one other person online that really, really don't like me, and they will not let it go. And you know who that other person is, because you've...
Unfortunately, yes.
Yeah. And they will not let it go. And I'm just at that point in my life where I'm tired of having people walk all over me, because I've always tried to just, like, stay quiet, ignore it, hope they go away, and they don't go away. They keep coming back. Because unless you actually stand up for yourself and say, excuse me, you're wrong because of these reasons, they're going to keep coming for you. And I'm not going to sink to their level. I'm not going to start lying about people online. I'm not going to call anyone names. I'm not going to do any of that stuff. But I am just going to say, here's the things you're saying about me. This is not true. Here's the truth. And I'm at this point now where, like, I'm done. But I feel like I've said my piece now. And it's like, if anyone says anything again, I can just be like, here's the video, watch that. That's what I think. It's the same with this with you. It's like, send them here.
Mm-hmm. And I do think, you shouldn't have to censor yourself. And I mean, I've said this to you privately as well. If you want to respond to something, you should be able to respond. And I think you're in a good position where you have people around you who will tell you if you're wrong.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's something that Gabby has. I think she sort of chooses to surround herself with people who will agree with her, and I don't know how much I can say about this now. I have been speaking to somebody in the background who was sort of in that position as well, so there'll be stuff coming out about that soon, so I won't say too much now. But yeah, she just seems like somebody that will only tolerate being told she's right, and that's kind of where the problem is. But you should absolutely be allowed to defend yourself, even now that you've said your piece. If she comes at you again and comes up with a new lie, or a new lie spreads, like, she said something about like you're burning a book and people took that literally and thought you were literally burning her book, you should be allowed to come out and say, no, actually, just correcting myself there.
It's just, it really bothers me how much misinformation there is online. And I think it's, I do have that autistic trait of like, I have a very definitive sense of right and wrong in my head. And I'm like, I have to say the right thing. I have to do the right thing. I have to make sure the right thing is known. And like, I'm like, even when people are spreading like misinformation about me that might be like positive and helpful, I'm like, no, but that is wrong and it needs correcting. And it's a bit of a flaw in me, a massive, massive flaw. But it's something that I really struggle with. So like, I saw people saying stuff like how like, oh well, like Rachel's qualified because she has a literature degree, and I'm like, I don't have a literature degree. I have a BSc in business management. Like, that's just incorrect and it's wrong. And it's like, even though they're on my side, I feel the need to be like, you're wrong. And like,
but I think that's a good trait. I mean, if somebody lied about Gabby to prove her point, she'd be like, sure. I mean, in my opinion, but opinion based on history. So no, I think it's good that you've spoken out, honestly, because otherwise the lies, they just keep growing,
pile up.
Yeah, and people will just take your opinions as whatever they want it to be.
Yeah. I think the problem is as well with like Gabby's Instagram rants that time, there was so much misinformation in there. I didn't really know where to start with it all. And even in the video that I just released, like I didn't correct every little thing. Like there was just so many random little bits. Like she was like, yeah, all your friends turned on you when you reviewed my book. And I'm like, no, they didn't. That just didn't happen. Like she said about Jimmy that he called me out for my toxic behavior. I'm like, no, he didn't. Like that's not what happened. Like we had a falling out and stuff, and he was trying to get me to like change implying I should change my review and stuff like that. But like he didn't call me toxic. He didn't say my behavior was toxic. Like, and she was like, and you got all this backlash for reviewing my book. And I'm like, well, actually, no. Like 98% of people liked that video. Like they were on my side, and like all these little things. She was like, yeah, and she doesn't even like Bo Burnham, and like blah, 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 she did this. And I'm like, well, if you watch the video, it's actually really positive about Bo Burnham. And I have a whole video called Bo Burnham's a Genius, where I review like lyrics of his that are really, really good. And I'm like, there's such minor little things, but they're incorrect. And I have this like need in my head that like it builds up, and there's like all this pressure if I don't correct it, where I'm like, I need to set it right. I need to, but you can't do that to everything, and it's really exhausting. So I don't know.
No, I get what you mean, but no matter what you do, people are gonna misinterpret things or lies are gonna spread. But at least of the main points that people have made, your thoughts are out there, your facts are out there, you've said your piece.
Yeah.
Nobody can say that you haven't responded. You have. It's all there for everybody to see. And you know, when she comes at you again in another year's time, which I wouldn't put past her, I don't know what happens then. You can just point everybody to the video, just send a link to your video and be like, well, it's the same situation.
This again.
Nothing new. Yeah. Which makes me wonder, do you think this is ever going to end? Do you think she's going to keep bringing this up, or this is it?
I hope not. I feel like one of the benefits of what she's done is that if I'm right and she just wanted an easy way to have like a clean slate and a fresh start without putting the work in, then at least hopefully she's going to move on and want a fresh start. And so hopefully she'll give me what I want and just leave me alone. I hope that's the case. I don't know. We'll see, but I hope so.
Let's all manifest that, because as we established, I'm a bit woo-woo, so I like the manifesting. Is there...
Do we have to wait for some planets to align? Is there a star thing going on?
Yeah, I think we're good at the moment. There's nothing that would interfere, as far as I'm aware. So we're okay. You can manifest whenever. And I hate to be like hipster about this, but I was manifesting before it was cool, back when it was called chaos magic. Thanks very much. So if we can all just know that I'm the original. But anyway, is there anything else that you want people to know about the situation or about your opinions on it before we sort of close off?
Okay, there is one. This is a really minor thing. It's so silly. You know, when I was like, I need to like correct everything. I said in that video that like James Marriott like copied my idea for the Gabbie Hanna video in the first place, right? And a lot of people were like, "Oh, you can't say that. People have the same ideas all." I'm like, "Yeah, they do. Absolutely. Like that's absolutely fine." Except James Marriott actually said he copied my idea. That's not me saying he copied. He said it. So again, I just feel like I have this beef with James Marriott now, and he just couldn't care less, which I'm okay about.
Yes, new Rachel Oates beef. Great.
No, people were like going easy on James Marriott and stuff, despite his vomiting sounds about her poetry and stuff like that. He made nearly as many videos on Gabbie Hanna as I did, but his were far nastier, and he's also deleted some of them now. One of them in particular was when Gabby responded to criticisms in the first place, and was it then? No, I'm lying. It was when Gabby had her Instagram rant at me, right? A bunch of commentary channels started making videos on it. James Marriott made a video on it, and in it he said of me and my videos, I got the idea for my video from Rachel's video. And he said that he made his Gabbie Hanna poetry video because he saw my video. His words, not mine. And then he also made a comparison about how like we basically made the same video and I was just as mean as he was. And I was like, whoa. Excuse me, what? And I left him quite a detailed comment telling him that he was wrong and that I was not happy about it. And then a bunch of his fans were also really mad about it, so he deleted the video.
Okay.
But yeah.
Well, that is good to know. I think when you were mentioning him copying your video thing, I didn't think you meant that in any kind of like accusatory way. It was just sort of like,
no.
I mean, that's how a lot of these videos
just in a
get
quoting
made.
him way.
Yeah. Just in a that's exactly what he said kind of way. Not in any kind of like mean way or anything.
Malicious way, no.
Out of curiosity, how did you feel about his videos?
Which ones?
His videos on Gabby's poetry.
Oh yeah, I absolutely hated it. And I think I said it in my own video. And especially when he said that he got the idea from me and I'd seen that video, that made me feel so bad. Because while I loved inspiring other people to talk about poetry and read poetry, I was like, I have inspired cruelty and meanness. If my work inspires someone to be this horrible, that doesn't make me feel good. And I didn't like that at all. I felt that like he was making a mockery of poetry in general. I felt like he was being unnecessarily cruel to Gabby. I just think he's quite a mean person. And like he gets away with it because he's a man, but he gets away with it way more. And like since then I've like seen some of his other videos, and like I've seen like parody videos he's done of like other people's music where he'll have like racially insensitive lyrics in there mocking someone for their race, or like he does this horrible stuff, and I'm like, there's no need for it. There's absolutely no need for it.
Now
like,
imagine if you had done that.
Yeah, but like I managed to parody Gabby's book without making any personal digs at Gabby or about Gabby. It was only ever critiquing and exaggerating elements of the work. When James Marriott parodies someone's music or songs, he makes it all personal digs about them. Well, nearly always. And I'm like, that's what's cruel, and that's not what I did. Then
I think that's an important thing to sort of, I mean, we've said it a few times throughout this, but it is important to hammer home, because even in my recent videos talking about this kind of stuff, people are still saying, well, no, because Rachel did actually attack Gabby, which didn't happen. You never attacked her personally. You never said anything about her. I've attacked her personally. Absolutely. I've definitely done that. You have not. You critiqued poetry, which is publicly available for people to review and to read and to like or dislike. And just because you critiqued it doesn't mean you said anything bad about her. She is not the book. She just created it.
Yeah.
And I want people to remember that.
The worst things I've said about her personally are that her work is lazy and that she's a cruel person. And that's what I've said since she's been speaking about me like this. I've called her cruel. I've called her mean. But like these people are like, oh, Rachel started it. She attacked her personally. I just kind of want to ask those people where. Find me like a quote of me being personally nasty about Gabby. Again, James Marriott brought up her dating history. He was like, poetry sounds like it's been written by a 14-year-old virgin, and like, they're personal. And I maybe made a jab about her not being as feminist as she wanted to imply she was, but
I mean, she's clearly not a feminist. So, so I think you were right. No, it's just something that it irritates me when I see these comments, and I don't, to be honest, I don't even bother responding to them, because I can't argue with like no information. Be going like, well, no, this didn't happen. Like, I can't prove to you something that doesn't exist.
It's so hard to prove a negative.
That's what I'm trying to say.
It's ridiculous. Yeah.
So, but yeah, the main takeaway I think from all of this is that here's my thoughts and opinions, right? Gabby bad, you good. No. You critiqued a work, right? A piece somebody had written, and that person took it personally and is still attacking you 5 years later, and that's not okay.
Yeah.
And that kind of sets a dangerous precedent for reviewers to not be able to give honest opinions if they don't want backlash from large creators or people with followings or anything like that, which isn't how this should work. And I have, you know, as much as I hate authors, like, I'm trying to think of an example, maybe Sarah J. Maas is one. She's never responded to the bad criticism that she gets. She lets that be for the readers, and I have respect for that, because that's the way that it's meant to be.
Yeah, but you know who has? Colleen Hoover.
We have no respect for her here. Hate the woman. Can't stand her.
But you're right, it does set a terrible precedent if you have authors attacking reviewers for reviewing their work. And like, I'm not going to pretend I was like perfect in the whole thing, and like, yeah, I probably did some things wrong here and there, and I was snarkier here and there than I should have been, but at the same time, like, I didn't deserve to be called a stupid ugly bitch for reviewing a poetry book. Like, it's not okay. And it wasn't even just Gabby's attacks, it was the fact that she weaponized her whole audience. She did it on the platform where she could tag me and send her audience directly to me, where they started sending me directly rape and death threats to my dog. Like, she knew what she was doing. Colleen Hoover, even she wasn't quite that vicious. Like, she did weaponize her fan base against who was the YouTuber who reviewed her books that didn't like them? Who was that?
I only read briefly about this, so I'm not sure who it was.
It was a man, so he's one of us now. He's like an honorary woman. But no, he even his gender couldn't protect him. But he got it really bad from Colleen Hoover and her fans. But even she, I don't think, and correct me if I'm wrong, anyone in the comments, but I don't think she even went as far as to like directly tag someone and be like, here, millions of followers, this is who you're attacking.
Yeah, which I fully believe. Like, I mean, I think anybody with eyes, or even without eyes, can see that that is what she was doing, that she wanted people to attack you.
Yeah, because even after I blocked her, she kept tagging me. She kept sending people directly to me. Like, that wasn't to get my attention, because she was blocked. She did it to send her fans there.
It was just to hurt you, and I can't even imagine how hard that must be to have that many people coming after you. Like, I've had much smaller instances of that, and even that is hard to deal with.
It was horrible. My Instagram account got shut down because of just the sudden influx of comments and messages. Instagram thought it was like a spam thing, and they temporarily just shut my Instagram account down, and I had to like message them and send all this stuff and be like, this is what's going on, this is what happened, here's a news article about it, and get my account back that way. But ridiculous.
Jesus. Well,
yeah.
To all those people, go fuck yourself. And because she's not going to say it, I will. But
to all those people, please just be a little bit nicer.
And go fuck yourself. See, I'm making you look even nicer in comparison with me. Now we just need a Lizzie here to get the full spectrum going. Next video, guys, next video. I have one final big question for you before I get to that, because it's just sort of a final thing. Is there anything you wanted to mention that I haven't discussed? Anything else you want people to know? Anything you want to say to Gabby herself if for some reason she's watching this?
Oh, she's not.
She probably
Gabby,
isn't.
To Gabby directly, just please leave me alone. Just like, move on. Do a little bit of internal work. Be nicer to people. Please work on the internalized misogyny and just leave me alone, please.
Maybe follow the teachings of Jesus properly and stop bullying people. Like, see, I didn't tell her to go fuck herself. You're welcome. Even though I want to.
Thank you.
Well, my final this is the most important question actually of the whole thing, is have you heard of something called Kickstarter?
Oh my god, you know what? I actually just backed a book on there the other day.
What was that book, Rachel?
Well, you know what, actually, I think you maybe know about it a little bit better than I do.
Well, I didn't tell her I was planning to do this now. I did say I was going to mention it. But for those of you who don't know, I have been working on a book. It's currently titled Bound by Blood and Sea. It's a dark fantasy with mermaids and fae inspired by Irish mythology, with gay characters and Marley Grey characters, political stuff, religious stuff. It's really fun time, uplifting book. But I mean, you have been suffering through my going on about this book for a long time now.
I have been enjoying supporting you for a while now.
Thank you. That was a much nicer way to put it. Yeah, but also suffering through it. I think anybody who's had to listen to me talk about this for the last 500 years has been suffering because I won't shut up. It's sort of taken over my life. No, it's really
exciting. It sounds absolutely amazing. And your writing is fantastic, because I've given you feedback on like all sorts of short stories and little bits like that, and you're a great writer. So
thank you.
I'm very excited.
I appreciate that. And you know, funnily enough, when she's given me feedback, I haven't called her a bitch. So it's really that easy.
No, that comes later.
Oh yeah, that's once the book is out and I need some drama to get more sales, clearly. But anyway, I put up a Kickstarter to help fund me self-publishing this book, because the publishing industry is sort of a mess and difficult, and I didn't want to compromise anything in my book. And we are currently really close to the next stretch goal. So I would appreciate if people check it out. It's in the description. You can read more about the book and why I'm doing a Kickstarter and what the funds will go for. You can also see all the rewards that you can get for pledging to different tiers. So like a copy of the paperback, the ebook, signed paperback, prints and stickers and things like that. So check it out. Rachel did back it, so it's Rachel approved. So...
Wait, I actually have to give you money for that. I thought you were paying me.
That comes after. Shh. It's just for optics. Apologies,
no,
I think I
am genuinely backing it.
Thank you. I do appreciate that. But yeah, so if you want to check it out, it's in the description. It really helps me out, and I'm so grateful with how supportive people have been. You guys have been way more generous than I ever could have expected, and it's just really exciting. And the more we can raise, the more I can put into this book and into making it the absolute best it can be before it comes out, and getting a proper cover artist instead of doodling something ugly myself, which is currently what's shown on the thing. So thank you. Check that out. And for you, thank you for being here. Thank you for answering my questions. And thanks for being lovely. So,
Aww. Oh, bless. No, thank you. I've enjoyed this. I think it's been good to air out all my feelings and thoughts, and it's nice to do it with a friend. So I appreciate you.
okay, well, people can
You're the
check out
best.
your video still if they haven't. It's in the description, and your video on parody and stuff. I think that's all, not required reading, but definitely recommended reading for understanding all of this. And yeah, check out all of Rachel's stuff. Thank you for watching, subscribe, do all the things, right? You know how this works. And see you guys later. Bye!